My name is Eddie C, and welcome to my positive podcast. I'll bring you positive stories of people from all walks of life, because everyone has a story to tell. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to MPP, my positive podcast. And I'm your host, Eddie C. Well, first of all, I'd like to give my sincere apologies to all my listeners out there and followers who have not heard from me in quite a while. A lot of that has to do with the fact that I also have my musical career that I'm still very busy with, and my photography, which is also another hobby of mine. But I promise to get more shows to you all in the future and on a more frequent basis. We do have a Patreon program that you can become a member of and become a positivist, as I call them. And you can go to mypositivepodcast.com to find out any details about that. And of course, your support would be so welcome. Well, before we get into our next guest, we're going to be talking today about not looking back. And that's our theme, don't look back. And my next guest will have a lot to say about that. So if you're curious, sit back, tune in, and stay positive. My name is Eddie C, and you're listening to My Positive Podcast. Well, ladies and gentlemen, my guest for this episode is a very interesting guy. I was doing a duo tour that we have called Ebony and Ivory. And after the show, it came to the bar, and all of a sudden this young man actually came to talk to me, and he was pretty much enthusiastic about how the show went. And we started talking, and he asked me actually to be on his radio program. And of course, I agreed to do that. And I said, well, since we're busy, I'd like to have you on my show as well. So please welcome my next guest, Mr. Alain Maesen. How you doing, Alain?
I'm great. Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, man. It's very nice that you, decided to come on my show as well.
No problem.
Which is great. So can you tell my listeners a little bit about your background? I know that you have a radio show called Radio Apollo, but you've done so many other things. Can you tell about your background, where you're from, and kind of bring my listeners up to date?
Okay, how much time do we have?
We've got time enough.
Okay. Well, I was born in Ostend on the other side of the country, and that was way back in the last century. And what I've actually been doing is, after my studies, I just went to high school, that's all. And I started working at factories, Ford factory, Philips factory, and so on. And I ended up in the building site in the construction. But I done that for about 10, 12 years, and then I went working to the airport. I worked for several airliners, as Delta Airlines and the Israeli Airlines, and also Brussels Airlines, and what have you not there. But after that, I've started working in a facility company as a facility coordinator, and I've came into a burnout after a couple of years. And that's been, about 5-6 years ago. And during my burnout, I have been studying for a burnout to become actually a burnout coach. And that's what I'm doing today. I'm also a career coach at this time. But it took me a while to become the burnout coach, because it was a very, hard course I had to do. But, here I am. And I have a radio show as well on Radio Apollo, which you are invited to. So, there you go. That's me.
You mentioned that you worked for the airlines. What exactly did you do there?
I was actually at check-in and boarding. So I helped people on board and see that everything was okay. The first airline I worked for, I was supervising the ramp. See that everything is on time and the aircraft is coming in, is landing. Everything is on time. The fueling, the catering, the water, everything that the cleaning that needs to be done, and see that the airplane is taken off at time, at foreseen time, the slot time. That's more or less what I've been doing, and administration, of course.
So it was actually quite a heavy load that you had every day, which I can imagine can lead to a burnout after a certain amount of time.
It was very stressful, but I was able to cope with it. I thought the burnout came, about 10 years later, but it's sort of built it up. Burnout is something that builds up.
So now that you're doing the coaching, what are some of the elements that you talk about with your clients that you are working with?
Yeah, I'm trying to make them comfortable. I'm not a psychologist. No, I want to be clear on that. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm just a coach, and I'm trying to make the people feel comfortable, and then talk a little bit about their past, about their today, and about their future. And they don't have to be afraid if they come into a burnout, because I think a burnout is one of the best trophies you can have during your career, because it means that you're so dedicated to your job that you became a workaholic at your job, and that deserves a trophy. Excuse me, and that's what a burnout is. But then again, you have to get out of the burnout to go back to work again. If it's the same work or not, that's something else. And we talk about that. I give them some duties, some chores to do. And in a couple of months' time, they're ready to go back to work.
Okay. Let me ask you a little bit more about, let's say, the whole burnout thing. Basically, a lot of people don't realize that they're having a burnout. I know myself personally, some years ago, I was experiencing a burnout without actually realizing it until some colleagues said to me, man, I think you're having a burnout and you need to take it easy, which I ended up doing. But yeah. What are some of the signs that you can relate to my listeners about that?
Well, at the beginning, you ignore it. You don't want to acknowledge you have a burnout. But, some of the signs is that you start working more and more and you do less and less. I mean, you've got 8 hours in a day, in a working day, and normally you can do your job in the 8 hours. The first sign is that you cannot cope with it anymore. You cannot do your job anymore in the 8 hours. Excuse me. So you start working at home. It depends on the job you have, of course, but you start working at home. You start working on a computer in the weekends. You're agitated, and people notice that you can't actually, it's difficult to explain, but at one point, your body just freezes and you cannot do anything anymore. But one of the first signs is that you do overwork, you work for free, you want the job done, you cannot, get your deadlines anymore. It's hard, but you don't acknowledge it. You don't accept that you have a burnout. It's, me having a burnout, never. I never have a burnout. That's for somebody else, but everybody can have a burnout. I mean, you had it yourself, so you know what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it becomes a chaotic situation because there's so much to do and nothing gets done on time or gets done properly. That was one of the signs that I recognized when I'm starting to do too much. I have to pull the brake and say, oh, wait a minute, slow down, regroup. Only take what you really can take and what's really important at that moment.
But that's difficult. Pulling the brake is very difficult. You don't want other people to see that you cannot do your job anymore. That's the pride that we have. And, then you go down and down and down. You get deeper and deeper and deeper. And at the moment you get to a point, of no return, as they say. But that's what I did.
I think there's also the fear of maybe losing a job, or the fear of not being able to produce what you need to produce at that moment for that particular job, and which kind of triggers, and then you get this sort of rubber band that stretches until all of a sudden it just pops.
Yeah, that's one of the things. Also, they don't want people to laugh at you because you cannot do your job anymore. That you don't want to give it out of hands, because having a burnout also means that you're a control freak, you're a perfectionist, you want to do everything yourself, and you take more and more because you want to prove to others that you can still do it, that you can do the job, even though others know you cannot do it anymore. So, pulling the brakes is very, very difficult. When you pull the brakes, it means you acknowledge you have it. But nobody does at the beginning. Nobody.
No. Well, I think you have to actually experience hitting rock bottom
Yeah.
in order to realize that you need to,
Yeah.
in the future, pull back. And that's something, for example, I had to go through myself as a person, hit basically rock bottom and then slowly regroup and get myself back into pace. But it's not easy for a lot of people. I think, especially if you're doing jobs that, let's say, consider a lot of routine, a lot of routine. I think creative people, a lot of, because you've got to deal with so many people at that moment every day. Like we're working at the airport, you don't know what these people have gone through. You've got to, absorb their energy and still try to keep things going in a smooth pace. And I think as being a musician and a creative person, let's say, you have a little bit more control over what you can attract to you or not. And especially as you get older, because you start to look at life from a whole different perspective.
True.
When you're young, when you're younger, there's always this sort of thing of, I need to achieve. I want to be the best at this. I want to be the best at that. And I personally think that the only thing you need to do is just be better than you were the day before, but do it in a way that you feel good at the end of the day. And you can still look at yourself in the mirror and say, hey, wow, I had a fantastic day. Even if things didn't go completely right, you still need to have that feeling of, I achieved something. It can be anything small. It could be that, maybe you had that cup of coffee less, or that you decided to maybe take that little small walk that you normally don't get to do. But something small can mean so much to yourself at the end of the day,
True. And, if you're in a burnout, or if you're trying to get out of the burnout, you also, experience that you can appreciate the small things in life, which you cannot do when you're going towards a burnout. Everything need to be done. Everything needs to be done. But once you're in the, you hit rock bottom, you start, as you say, you start seeing things differently, and you can enjoy the small things in life. When a bird is singing, you can say, oh yes, that's beautiful. The bird is singing. You didn't acknowledge that before. You didn't hear it before. And, that cup of coffee that you mentioned, it's a good cup of coffee. I enjoy the cup of coffee. Before, you just needed the coffee to go. Or you needed something else. It doesn't matter, but you need something to go, and now you can enjoy it. And after the burnout, if you go back to work, if you reintegrate back into the working situation, hopefully you know your boundaries, where you can stop and where you can pull the brakes. And quite a few people actually go back into burnout a couple of years later, and it all depends what kind of work you're doing, how stressful it is, how stressful yourself is. And, when you get older and older, you try to, you start to realize that there is more to life than just work. I mean, you've got a family, you've got kids, you've got, other things to do than work. You've got hobbies that you can do. So why, try to achieve more and more in the working situation? Try to enjoy your daily life. Everybody says you only live once. No, that's not true. You live every day, and you have to enjoy every day. And that's the message I try to give to people.
That's a beautiful message to spread to people. And I'm thinking as well, there's one thing which is also a very important element, is that you have to like what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of people are not, and I understand a lot of people have to do work to take care of themselves, to pay the bills, but you can get a certain amount of enjoyment out of going through that process, because the fact that at the end of the day, you achieved what you needed to do, within reason, you're still able to enjoy that work. And I think when people go with the idea that, I don't feel like doing it, and go with, I'm going to get this done, I'm going to make the best of it, that already creates a different mindset that's going to set your whole day off,
Exactly. But, going to work, if you don't want to go, that's inevitable. You always have days that you say, oh, Jesus, I hate it. I don't want to go. I'm going to the doctor and, blah, blah, blah. But the time that you can choose the job you want to do, well, we live in a different world now. I mean, it's not like in the 50s and the 60s anymore, but we live in a completely different world. We have job hoppers now. Back in the day, when you go to work, you do the same work until you retire. Either you like it or you don't like it, you just do it. Nowadays, you get a job, you don't like it, okay, you change. And people who come into a burnout, they had several jobs. But they also ask me then, as I'm being a job, career coach as well, they ask me, do I need to stay in this kind of job? Do I need to change my job? I'm not giving them any answers. They have to answer themselves, but I try to give them the tools to do so. And, a lot of people change jobs and they try to find something that they like, especially if they still have to work another 40 years here in Belgium. You never know, it changes every day, but you don't have to think about that. And also one of the tools I'm trying to give people is don't think too much about tomorrow. In the far future, in the near future, tomorrow does not exist. I have never been in the tomorrow situation, because when you wake up in the morning, you're still in today. You're not in tomorrow. It never comes.
Also, very, very wise words. I agree with you wholeheartedly on that, my friend.
Thank you.
Can you bring us through a typical session that you're doing with somebody that's say going for career change?
Yeah. There's one person. It's a she, and she's working. I'm not going to call it any names, obviously. She works at B Post. And it's very hard, with the packages nowadays. It's less letters, it's more packages. And it's a small, young woman, and she cannot handle it anymore. And she comes to me for career change. So what are we trying to do is find what her talents are, what she's capable of, what her hobbies is, what she likes. Does she need any education, evening education during the day, whatever. And with all those tools that I'm trying to give them, we play games as well, see what capabilities they have. I give them homework that they need to do. And with all these things I give the people, we try and find something. Well, she's trying to find something which she likes and likes doing. And it could be a hobby turning into a job, or vice versa, a job turning into a hobby. It all depends. Because people don't know what they want. A lot of people don't know what they want. If you ask the question, what do you want to do when you grow up? One says an astronaut, the other one wants to be a fireman, a fire worker, but when it comes to the point, they just don't know. And they take jobs because they need to pay the bills. It's inevitable. And we're trying to find out with questions, with games, with chores that I give. We're trying to find out what they really like, and we go in that direction. But I don't give them any jobs. I don't give them any answers. I'm just trying to lead them. It's their ship, and they're at the helm, not me. What can I say more?
Hey, okay, that's great. Do you combine that together with the whole burnout, with your whole burnout concept of working? Okay, so those are two separate things altogether.
100% separate things, yeah.
Okay. So let's say someone's coming to you for a job change, but because of the work that they're not happy with, but basically have you ever had any clients where, let's say somebody's come to you and they would say, well, I want to change my job, but you can already hear in their tone of voice, their whole way of behavior that actually they're going through the process of a burnout.
Yeah.
What do you do in those situations?
Well, that's a good question. Well, we're not allowed to combine them. That's point one. So if somebody comes to me and I hear there could be a burnout or tension, a very strong tension, I'm doing some tests. And if it is a burnout, I have to go to the doctor again, because he has to give the diagnosis, not me. And then they could come back to me. And I can treat them for burnout. If they came with a question, I want to have a job change, then I say, you just need to get out of your burnout first, and then we'll see about your job change. You cannot combine them. It's not allowed to. It's illegal to combine them. So try to help them in the burnout situation first. And that takes, some time, a couple of months' time. And then we can look for job change, because it's a different meaning of payment as well. So no combining, separate things. Burnout, job change, completely two different things.
Okay. So legally here in Belgium, you have to separate the two situations from each other. Okay.
Absolutely.
That's just protocol.
Yeah.
All right. What do you have a particular, a favorite from the two jobs? What do you prefer, being the burnout coach or being the job advisor?
Both. It's just different. It's different. Yeah, being a burnout coach, you can actually go with the people. You can go for a walk. Yeah, the sun is shining. You go to for a walk in a forest, whatever. You can go and have something to drink with them and talk and give them the tools there. You can get them out of their comfort zone. A job coach, you do it at your practice at your practice room. That's where you do the job coaching. You can also have a walk, but that's different. You cannot compare it. I mean, both 100% both. That's the only thing I can say about it, I think.
Yeah, okay. And the reason why I asked that question is because of my previous question about sometimes people coming to you with a combination of both. And of course, you explained that they have to have a different protocol for that.
Yeah.
So outside of doing your coaching and all, and tell us a little bit more about your radio program.
Oh, my radio program. It started about 2 years ago. I was invited for a very small interview on a Saturday morning, excuse me. And, about the coaching. And they told me that I've got a radio voice. And I said, no, I don't have a radio voice. So I just left it. But a couple of months later, I started thinking, maybe they're right. Maybe it's a hobby I can do. So I started on the Radio Apollo, as a radio coach, talking about coaching and all the aspects about coaching. But that was not really my thing to do on the radio. And at the end of the day, I started with a program called the Uitnodiging, the invitation. And I started to invite, interesting people, famous people as well. And it's on a Sunday afternoon from 3 to 5 on Radio Apollo. And that's what I'm doing. And I like it very much. I mean, it's also stressy because you need to write to 100 people to get 5 answers. Everybody's so busy. And, I'm in the second season.
And I know all about it, yeah.
You know all about it. I'm in the second season now, and I'm going to start the third season in September. So everything, knock on wood, is going well at this point.
All right. And that's an internet radio station that you have.
It is an internet radio station. It's located in Wiekevorst, which is the suburbs of Heist op den Berg. So it's not too far away. Belgium is small anyway. And it's an internet radio. You can find it on www.radioapollo.be. Very easy to find.
Yeah, and I'll also post that in the links when people read about this episode. So I'm going to ask you another question. Of course, with your work that you're doing, and of course your radio program, and of course, being we're at a certain age where you start to kind of want to project your experiences to the youth. What would you tell the youth today that are going out to pursue a job, going out to achieve their success career? What would you tell them?
I would tell them to enjoy their life and don't take a job just for granted. I mean, if you do a job, you need to do a job because you have to pay the bills. Try and find something that you like doing. Don't stare at the money too much, but, take a job. What can I say? They have to enjoy the life. They don't have to take a job because they need a job. They have to take a job because they want a job, and they have to take care of their families. So they have to take them in consideration as well. How much time do I want to spend at a job? You can work 80% or 50%. If it pays the bills, it's okay. Don't look at the neighbor because they have a beautiful car or they have a mansion standing there and they go 4 or 5 times a year on a holiday. Don't stare at them. Don't mind what the people say about you. Don't care about that. People will always talk about somebody. So, just throw it away. Lead your own or live your own life and try to do it at the best possible way. And, love your partner because they have a hard time too if you have a burnout and nobody is taking care of them. So think about your partner, think about your family, enjoy life as much as you can, and don't take just a job because you need a job. Don't take it for granted. Go and look for the best job possible.
All right. Great. Fantastic. I got one last question for you. If you had a choice of going back from your experiences, your past experiences.
I had that question before.
Okay. What would you do different?
Well, first of all, I don't want to go back. I mean, I want to be clear on that. I don't want to go back. But if I did have to go back, I would go to college and I would try to get a very good diploma degree, which I don't have now. I would think more. If I go back with the knowledge I have now, I would think of what I'm doing and I wouldn't be too materialistic anymore. But that's my point of view at this time, at this point. And, I'm 58 now, so I look at the world very differently. But I would certainly go to a college and get a good degree and try to do something with that and, try to make a job out of my hobby. But there's no way that I can go back anymore. And to be honest, I don't want to go back.
I'm glad that you said that because that's what I was hoping to hear. In fact, that you don't want to go back. No. But on that point, I would also, if I may add to you, is that I think it's very important that the moment that you're living in, which is say the moment of now, it's very important to realize that actually the best education you have had is the education that has brought you to this point where you are now. Yeah, because I always say the college of life.
Yeah, that's the best thing you can have. That's the college of life. And you have that for the rest of your life, until you go. You live in a college all the time. But as I said before, it's your boat. You're at the helm. You have to sail your boat. I don't have to do it. You have to do it yourself.
Right. Well, you have to, exactly. And you need to get everything. I always tell people, try to get as much out of your day as possible. Yeah. That you can feel valuable at the end of the day. I need to have the feeling, that's a personal thing, that when I close my eyes at night, that I had a great day and I'm not worried about what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't try to think about too much because it's important that you can sleep with a relaxed feeling. Yeah. Especially if you're a difficult sleeper like I am. You want to get every minute that you can, that you relax that mind, that you go, I had such a great day. I'm looking forward to tomorrow, because we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring,
Tomorrow doesn't exist.
Life can change. Life can change in a breath,
Yeah.
So that's that.
Yeah. You're living today and you have to cherish. Yeah. The moments that you are living now. You don't live tomorrow. You cannot, don't try to solve problems that don't exist at this time. You can actually think, in a few weeks' time, I need to solve this, I need to solve that. Don't try to think about that now. The problem is then, not now. Because if you do that, you don't have a life anymore. You live today. You don't live yesterday, it's the past. You don't live tomorrow, it's the future. And I think that's something I would like to give people now. Enjoy You have a family. Job is important, but what is more important? Your family, your partner, your kids, your dog, I don't know, your car, whatever. What is more important? Do you go for the money or do you go for the health? What is more important in life? Health or money? Money or family? It's a question that, you'd have to answer individually, but don't think too much in the future. Problems that you think might come, don't try to solve them now. For the same thing, they never come, those problems. Right?
Well, life is about choices, huh?
Life is about choices, and it's every single day. And do you make the right choice or the bad choice? You don't know. Future will tell. But future is something ahead of you. You cannot see it. Just, go with the flow.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, on those words, I'd like to thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
Sharing a bit about your lifestyle and your way of your viewpoint on living, and giving us a little bit of insight on burnouts and on actually job opportunity. And I appreciate it very much.
No, it's my pleasure. I've been a pessimist from the day I was born, and I was very, very dark and black. But burnout changed my life, so I cherish the burnout I had. How strange it might seem, but it is true. But I thank you for having me on the show and giving me the opportunity to explain a few things. So thank you very much for that, Eddie.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on again, and we'll talk to each other soon. This is MPP, and I'm Eddie C. Well, I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Alain. I know I did. Now let's take the phrase, don't look back. We've heard it in many, many songs. We also have heard the phrase go by in movies and probably read it several times in books. I think what's very important is not so much about the phrase not looking back, but I think it's also about using it more like reflecting back. And I think as long as you can reflect back on your past, you're able to use that and use it as a building stone. I think that's very important, that you can then live now and use your now as a building stone for your future. So think about it. Reflect back on your past to live now, and live now to create your future. On those words, here's my quote. Don't look back. No regrets on what you did or what you didn't do. Not worried about what the future brings. Just living in and learning in the moment. Reacting on what you feel now. Not letting the past mistakes rule your present. Dealing with reality to make it work for you. Not losing track as you aim forward. Living now and not in your past. Well, that's about it for this episode, ladies and gentlemen. But before I go, I'd like to thank my guest, Alain Maesen, for coming on and sharing his experiences about his life and about not looking back. And remember, if you fall forward, not backwards. Until next time. You can find me on all platforms like Spotify, Android, and Apple. On Facebook, look for My Positive Podcast, and my website is mypositivepodcast.com. You can also contact me via my website or Facebook. A very special thanks to my technical producer, Iswan. This show is a production by Antwerp Podcast Service. My name is Eddie C., and this was MPP, My Positive Podcast. Tune in next time and stay positive.